Hey, what's up with you guys? Today I want to give you a little perspective in terms of the growth of Uniswap and why I think it's a very sustainable platform and what I think is the growth potential going forward given the ecosystem where we are and the use cases that are developing around, specifically around Ethereum. So the first bit of the video, I want to focus on the growth, the current growth, and typically Uniswap and dApps are judged in terms of the total value lock. And if you look at that, for example, in DeFi Pulse, I always encourage you to look at the Ethereum value, not much of the USD value, because it's a more accurate representation. But I think the even better way to look at that would be look at the usage and the number of users and new users and the churn, repeated usage. So I took the liberty here to use this site called DApp Total, which basically tracks the smart contract for a number of decentralized applications. Here we're looking at the page for Uniswap, and this chart is essentially the number of new users. Chart of new users. By the way, don't forget that the new user in a decentralized application correspond in a sense. What we can measure is the number of new addresses. Now, there is a correlation obviously between user and addresses, but it's also true that one user could use multiple addresses. So that's not 100% accurate. But what we can see is like the current level of new users. Let's say right now, the last month, there's been like about 150 new addresses interactive with Uniswap per month, versus like about a year ago, we were talking about 30. So 5x growth, pretty impressive. So this is just a measurement. There was a spike in December. I don't know if this has to be correlated, for example, with the transition between a single collateral DAI and multi-collateral DAI, maybe the opening of new pool, but definitely very healthy growth when we look into the usage. And also here we can see also the retention rate. So retention rate is very high. Also if you take into account that these are not just the investors, these are not just the LPs, but also the users making the swaps. And so I think in terms of the exchange use cases, it's very spotty. You may be wanted to exchange one day, but you don't exchange every day. So even like looking at a retention rate of on a weekly basis of 15, let's say definitely more than 10%, even 20%, I think is very impressive. So there were articles I remember last year saying, oh, but Uniswap still has to find product market fit, is not sticky enough. I think I would challenge that, and especially with these new numbers and the growth is seeing, I think is a very strong use cases. I also want to show you still in the usage. More of an internal metrics we have. I'm just a sort of pretty stupid example. When we started making the Uniswap ROI calculators, which is pretty used now in terms of you guys, if you're invested in Uniswap or if you're considering investing, to track the pools and find the best opportunities. Back in July, I published a video just explaining the initial version of the calculator, and here you see that video, which in terms of the reach and the impression on YouTube and the search, how much has been growing. So really the interest for Uniswap, I think, is pretty solid on a search basis, and also on a measurement right on the blockchain of the people have been interacting with the contract. Now, what I want to do a little sort of next step is where is this going and how does this compare to other markets. So I remember back a few months ago I did a comparison. I took the liberty of saying, okay, what about, I was considering the couple Ethereum and DAI. I was saying, what about if comparing like the Ethereum and DAI to the Forex market, like the typical exchanges of currency between, I don't know, the dollar, euros, the yen, and so on. And it turned out that when you look at the Forex, the currency trading, this is like, it's a $5,000 billion USD worth of currency trading per day, which is 150,000 billion every month in terms of just Forex exchange. Now, these figures were maybe, by the way, this was in 2016. I wouldn't be surprised if today is 200,000. But 150,000 billion every month of Forex. Now, when I did this research, the Ethereum DAI trading was about 1.5 billion a month, right? So you compare this to the Forex is essentially 0.001 of the entire Forex trading. Now, just a second comparison, I said, what happened if we were to put the Forex trading, just for the fun of comparison, put that on Uniswap, right? Uniswap with a free 0.3% fee, just to see what that volume would generate in terms of fee. And it turns out that with those volume, that would mean in this hypothetical scenario, 450 million a month generating fees, right? So 5 billion a year. Now consider that the as the Uniswap guys tweeted just a few weeks ago. Right now we are at about 1 million. 1 million per year, right? We just reached 1 million USD in fees generated with Uniswap. So this would be like a 5,000 times increase. 5,000 times increase. Now, obviously, I mean, not all the forex market will be from a value perspective will go into crypto or the crypto trading, and depending on the use cases, there's no necessarily correlation and there's no indication that would reach that scale. But I think like with the development of new dApps and new use cases for which the exchange service is more and more useful, I really see the premise for the service to develop in a very meaningful way from where it stands right now, like it's 1 million a year in fees generated, to much more. I don't know if 5,000 times is like a real growth potential, but maybe several hundred I think is very realistic, given like a whatever reasonable time frame for this to happen. So definitely encourage people interested in the Ethereum ecosystem, in crypto in general, specifically Ethereum ecosystem, to look into Uniswap as being like a product, I would say, that where the usage is really has a strong growth. I think it reached a very solid product market fit, very good level of usefulness, and the growth potential can be very meaningful. Now, if you want to, if you have already invested in Uniswap and you want to track your portfolio, and because Uniswap, the sort of downside is like complexity, very complex to track exactly how how you're doing with your position and what pools to invest and so on and so forth. So there are a few tools. One here is uniswapri.com. It's a free tool. You can register. You can see, you can track your portfolio, get charting, and track how your investment is doing, is comparing to Holding. I'm sure many of you are already users of the platform, and also you can find the best pools if you still have not invested or you want to have more visibility into that. So perhaps check it out. If you like this video, give it a like, and perhaps subscribe to the channel. We're talking about DeFi right now, a lot about Uniswap given the growth, but also compound. We're also having a compri.com, which is a calculator for compound. Definitely focusing right now on Uniswap, but going forward more in depth, DeFi, more 360. So if you like these topics and you like the content, please subscribe. Also, feel free to comment and with questions or follow up. In the tool, you find like different sort of entry points to talk directly with me if you have other follow up question. And until next time, have a good one.